Hi everybody, and welcome to our fourth Sugar Savvy video. Today we're making cupcakes, and I'm Kimberly. I'm the editor-in-chief of Independent.
And I'm Sophia.
It is a snow day here in Northern Virginia, so Sophia is here being my sous chef today, helping me out. But part of my job in Independent is to curate material that we share with you. And one of our contributors, Kate, gave us this recipe for cocoa, kale, and beet cupcakes. And so at first I thought, okay, that's a little bit weird, strange ingredients. And then to boot, they were gluten-free and vegan. And I started to get worried that they would be hard to make. So some of the ingredients are a little bit different. The method is a little bit different. And I wanted to test it out to make sure that it was going to work for everybody. And this was last year. And they turned out fantastic. And this has actually become my go-to cupcake recipe. So I'm here to kind of demystify the process for you. One of the biggest things when you're doing alternative baking with the different ingredients is that things work together a little bit differently with the chemistry. So with this particular recipe, you have to keep the wet and dry ingredients separate until you are ready to put them in the oven. So you have to have your cupcake tins already, you have to have the scooper already, you have to be able to work really fast to pop it in the oven. And so if it doesn't turn out quite right, I actually have these that we made last weekend. Here, let me get a little bit closer. And what happened was I forgot my cocoa powder. I combined everything and I thought, oh, this is a really pretty red color. But that was because the cocoa powder wasn't in there. And so they turned out kind of flat. They still taste good. They're actually more fudgy than how they normally turn out. So we weren't disappointed, but that's just one of the things. The ingredients and the acid have to come together and have a chemical reaction and then go in the oven really quickly to make them turn out kind of with the consistency of normal cupcakes. So if it doesn't work out perfectly, you can know that they still taste good and you can enjoy them, and you know, I don't care if it's a little bit more fudgy. But today we're not going to forget the cocoa powder, right, Sophia?
That's the one thing we're going to remember.
Yeah, and so we'll demonstrate how to go through these. And so hopefully you can be successful making them at home. So why in the world would you want to have a cupcake with kale and beets in it? Well, a lot of traditional baked goodies are full of empty calories. They're not nutritious at all with all the white flour and the white sugar, and it's just a sweet indulgence. But I really like to try to make the food I eat be nutritionally dense, so have it be working for me a little bit. So in a recipe like this, it does have some of the healthier ingredients. So even though it's an indulgence with the coconut sugar that we put in these, it's still feeding my body something that's good for me. So there's a nice balance there. So the first thing we do is preheat the oven to 350 and
put the cupcake holders into the cupcake pans. Because we have to do it early so we're ready to work quick.
That's right, we have to have everything ready so we can get it in the pan quickly. And I have my scooper, and so I'll make sure to keep my scooper with the cupcake pans so we can be super speedy.
And this will make about 12 cupcakes this size.
Yeah, it actually makes it less. I think we got 9 last time, but it just depends on how full you pack your cupcakes. So the first thing we need is a cup of cooked diced beets. So you can steam your beets for, it's okay, it's already measured, so I don't need these. You can steam your beets for about half an hour, and it's up to you whether you want to use the peel or not. So just make sure, Sophia says no, because you're gonna grind it up in the blender, so it doesn't matter if you use the peel. But I actually, since we're going to the trouble of making the cupcakes, I'm taking a shortcut, and I get these cooked beets from Trader Joe's, and it's exactly 8 ounces. So I just saved myself the step of the steaming. But that's something that you could do ahead so that you have it all ready. And beets are really messy to work with, so you want to make sure I kind of drain these over my sink.
That's why I wore red.
Oh. Well, that's smart. So you do want to make sure to keep it off of your clothes. It might stain your fingers a little bit. And if you spill on your countertop, just make sure to wipe it up right away, because the beets are, they have a lot of color to them. And a lot of people don't like beets. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because they get the pickled beets at the salad bar and they think that they're not good, but they're actually
Sweet.
Yeah, they're sweet and they taste really good. And you can, if texture is a thing for you, you can just, you know, if you're eating them plain, if you're not putting them in cupcakes, you can just maybe cook them not quite as long or even eat them raw. So Sophia's gonna start chopping those up for me. But beets are really fantastic. We actually watched a documentary recently showing that beets can help increase your athletic endurance, so, and your stamina. So if you're doing a long run or doing a workout and you want to have a little extra edge, you can actually drink some beet juice.
You have
So
to chop them up into little cubes.
yeah, but they can just be a raw chop because we're going to put them in the blender
Oh,
anyway.
they don't have to be perfect?
Yeah, they don't have to be perfect. Beets can also help lower your blood pressure, and they have some anti-cancer properties. So they're really great to add to your diet. And somebody compared these a little bit to a red velvet cupcake just because they do get the nice red tinge from the beets. And you get the coloring naturally. I'm just gonna pop in here and help Sophia a little bit.
I must like this.
So she's been helping me in the kitchen since she was big enough to stand on a step stool. So she's also a really good eater. So I think that having her in the kitchen with me a lot helps her be excited about the food that we eat.
Hey, do you want a cube?
You can eat a cube. Go ahead.
We'll go ahead and wash my hands.
All right, so the next thing that we need is the kale. So I chopped a bunch of it already, and I'll show you. You want it to be really fine, so it almost looks like the dried parsley that you get, because you don't want big chunks of kale in your cupcake, to tell you the truth. So if you chop it really finely, it just kind of blends in, and it's not a big deal.
Are you going to cut this?
I am, so I'm gonna cut this one up. So what you do is kale has a stem in the middle, and you don't want that in your cupcake either. So I just knife the side. So the stem to get the kale off, just the leaves. And then I've been collecting
I'll get that.
my produce, kind of the scraps from cooking, into a freezer bag and keeping it in my freezer. And then just about every week, once it's full, then I go ahead and make some of my own vegetable broth. So a lot of people recommend don't use a lot of greens in your broth because it'll make it bitter, but if I have a few stems, I'm not too worried about it, and it turns out just fine.
And yeah.
Okay. So what I do is I kind of bunch it all up together, make a little ball, and then do a fine dice.
You're spraying some down.
I am spraying some down, and we have our dogs down there, so they'll be curious. They can take a look.
You think they'll like kale?
I don't know. They usually don't like leafy things. So I make this really small. So I dice it up the best I can, and then I put I put one hand on the knife, and then move my knife along the edge so that it gets really, really, really tiny. And so I just used, these were smaller leaves of kale, so I used 4 or 5. But if you have the really big leaves,
Just use 3.
yeah, you can just use 2 or 3.
Are we gonna have extra kale because you cut this ahead of time?
No, we'll combine this with that one. So take your time and get it
Perfect.
and make it perfect, get it really fine so that nobody ends up with a huge gunk of kale when they're eating their cupcakes, because then they'll be like, okay, that is weird. But if you chop it really small, then it blends in really nicely. Okay, Sophia, you can put that in the bowl for me.
It has to be kind of the smaller pieces is probably as small as chia seeds.
The chia seeds are smaller, but that's what's coming next. So we'll start working on our chia combination. So chia seeds, when they soak, they get gummy. And so this will help us bind our cupcakes together rather than using eggs. So we just need a teaspoon of chia seeds. And we're putting this directly into the blender jar.
It makes it thick, does it?
Yeah, so it kind of makes it a pudding consistency. And then we need half a cup of warm water.
How warm does it have to be? All the way on hot, or in the middle, or on the quick?
Yeah, so it doesn't need to be burning hot, but I put it all the way over on hot. And in our house, it takes a little while for the water to heat up. So then just when
it's really quick, you have to put it up at the middle.
Yeah, or just not run it as long.
Yeah.
So you can go ahead and put that in the blender. And then we need 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. So this is where we're getting the acids that are going to get that nice chemical reaction for us.
Just like in every recipe in the past, it all had apple cider vinegar.
Okay, and then next is 2 tablespoons of coconut oil.
That's hard to get out of the jar.
I know, you can tell that our house is a little bit chilly because our coconut oil is solid. So I can kind of gauge, I know that I'm going to be comfortable in my house if it's in its liquid state.
I'll be too hot if it's in the liquid.
But it is a snow day today. So it's a nice day to be baking. I don't know, I think people further north from Northern Virginia might be having a little bit more of a snow day. I'm not sure
You just have
if
to
it
do
got as bad as, so maybe you're snowed in too. All right, and then we need 2 teaspoons vanilla extract. I'll let Sophia do that and I'll wipe the coconut oil off of my hands. Yeah, 2 teaspoons. Vanilla extract.
Oops, a little spoon.
Okay, well, just account for that then.
I'll put extra vanilla in the cupcakes.
And a teaspoon of lemon juice. And so with the storm last night, we actually had a tree fall down. So I'm hoping we get through this video before my landlord comes and wants to have a look. So hopefully, so hopefully we won't be interrupted. But luckily nobody was hurt. It actually fell in the road and closed the road. My husband and I got up this morning and saw all the cars outside turning around. So that was a little bit of excitement.
I woke up having a flashing light go through my window. The police's light.
Yeah, the police were out there blocking off the road, and the county came to at least get the part of the tree that was in the way. So all kinds of adventures today. So we have everything we need in here. We just put the lemon juice in and we just set it aside. So that will let the chia seeds soak. And
You can do the next step.
yeah, and then we can start doing the next step
You should rinse everything.
while those sit. So if you were steaming your beets, you could put your beets on to steam and then just let these soak while you're waiting for your beets to finish up. It's okay, baby. We don't need to wash up because it'll just make lots of noise with the water. So then we'll start doing our flours and things like that, get those all ready. So
Sifter.
I've had a sifter before and it always I don't know, it always breaks on me. So I've replaced them and everything else. So I finally, rather than using a sifter, have just started using a strainer. So we'll put our ingredients in there rather than a sifter. But if you have a sifter that happens to win, go ahead and use it.
That was just as well.
So we'll start with our dry ingredients now, and so we need 3/4 cup almond meal to start. And I get this at Trader Joe's. If you're not able to find almond meal, you can make your own using raw almonds from
Blend it up all the way.
from the commissary.
It also just tastes like almonds. So it's nice to eat.
Oops, I got a little too much. Okay, and then we need 1 cup sweet sorghum flour. And I was counting on my Whole Foods having that, and they didn't. So we're using oat flour today. Oat flour is about the same weight as sweet sorghum flour. It's a medium weight, kind of the weight that an all-purpose flour would be. So I'm going ahead and making that substitution. But if I would have not trusted my Whole Foods to have it, I could have ordered it from Amazon. So Sophia's putting, yep, just 1 cup. And then we have, you can use cocoa powder. I'm using raw cacao powder today.
Yeah.
I am, and we need 1/4 cup. And so we're not forgetting it. We're putting it in our bowl.
Yeah, so then I need to have coconut sugar ready.
Yeah. So a good reason to add kale to your cupcakes. Well, it actually turns out kind of pretty. They add just little green flecks in, and so I think it looks kind of nice. But kale contains protein and folate and omega-3, so you get a nice nutritional punch with the kale in your cupcakes. So if you have kids and you're having a hard time getting them to eat some of the more bitter greens, then perhaps try sneaking them into a treat.
And the frosting makes it a little sweeter. And
yeah,
makes
so
it tastier because cocoa powder makes it all chocolatey. And I don't like just chocolatey, so I like to have chocolate and something light.
yeah, so it makes it nice. So we also need a cup of the coconut flour, and we might need to
Coconut sugar, you mean?
yeah, coconut sugar. I'm sorry. Thank you. Woo. And I just stir that up a little bit so that it'll
Get all loosey-goosey.
goose to come out of the jar. Woo.
But
Be careful. Be careful with the knife.
you don't have to.
I know. I have to be careful with
I
the
didn't
knife.
do anything.
I know you were good.
Little big chunks come out, so there might be too
Yeah.
big of a chunk when I check.
Okay, so we also need 1 teaspoon each of baking soda and baking powder.
Big cup.
Big cup. So Sophia's been doing the Sugar Savvy Challenge with us. And so tomorrow is the last day. What do you think about the challenge, Sophia?
Hard.
It was hard to give up
I'm
sugar.
allowed to eat coconut sugar.
Yeah, she's doing level 1, so she's allowed to eat coconut sugar. And
It tastes just the same to this brown sugar, so it doesn't really matter.
yeah, and so the deal with coconut sugar, I have a big sigh because there's a little bit of a discussion in my house going on about coconut sugar. My husband says that to eat coconut sugar when you say you're sugar-free is like eating chicken when you're a vegetarian, when you say you're a vegetarian.
Because you think that meat is red, so when you eat chicken, it's white. So, and that's the difference.
So the deal with, yeah, you can add a teaspoon of that. With coconut sugar is that it is mostly sucrose. And so the amount of fructose in coconut sugar is only about 9%, whereas it's 50% in regular white sugar. And so the experts are telling us that we should, to avoid obesity and other health problems, to try to lower our fructose as much as we can.
You should go ahead
And so that's why this is a good option. My husband begs to differ a little bit. He thinks if you're going to give up sugar, you should just give it up and not turn to some of these other sweeteners.
I just eat at special occasions though.
Yeah. So, you know, I think my philosophy is that if we're going to make a treat, and it's only sometimes, to try to pick some of the better sugars rather than the white sugar. So that's a choice that everybody can make for themselves when they decide to start reducing the amount of sugar in their diet. But I also find that when I am more choosy about my sugars, then it's harder to get them, so I eat less. So I'm less likely to go to the store and buy something because it's really hard to find things that are sweetened just with maple syrup or with honey or coconut sugar.
There's those one treats at Trader Joe's that are mints and they're sugar-free, they just have honey.
Yeah, they do. They're
really tasty.
They are very tasty.
We don't have any right now.
So, you know, I find it hard to eat sugar in moderation. If it's here in the house, I'm just going to eat it and eat it and eat it. So kind of creating some parameters around the types of sweeteners that I eat actually helps me moderate. So I don't know that I can say, yes, I'm eating sugar cupcakes, but again, that's...
You don't eat them sometimes.
Yeah.
But
so, you know, that's a choice that you can make for yourself. But coconut sugar tastes a lot like brown sugar. So you can substitute it one for one in your recipes. So I'm just going to help Sophia here. With the almond flour, there tends to be kind of some skins in there, and so they won't all sift out. So I just get as much through as I can, and then I use the back of the spoon, and then I'll just dump the rest in there.
But it's not sifted.
Well, it's sifted pretty good. Okay, so now we have, can you stir that up for me? We have our dry ingredients, and we'll finish up the wet ingredients. So I'm going to put beets in with the, oh, she's gonna eat one more beet. And I'm gonna put the beets into the blender with the chia mixture and the acids. And we're gonna get our station all set up so that
this can go right.
So that we
this up, but I don't really want coconut oil mixing with my dry ingredients.
So we'll get our station all set up so that we can move very quickly once the wet ingredients are done. So the beets are in the blender, and I'll just process those on low until they're combined.
It's nice and red. Do we still eat this?
No, you can just set it down. Let it down.
And the cocoa powder makes the cupcakes look chocolatey. So if you serve it to people, they might think it's chocolate. So whatever the fruit, artificial fruit like this fruit.
All right, so I did turn that up just a little bit more because my coconut oil was so solid. But can you see? It's so pretty and red, and this is where the nice color in our cupcakes is going to come
I
from.
don't have those fruits in it, but people might think that these cupcakes are chocolate cupcakes with those maple fruits.
Oh, she's talking about the leibkuchen, you put the candied fruits inside.
They might think that this is the candied fruit and this is the chocolate.
All right, can you pour the kale in there? So pour the kale in with the dry ingredients and mix it up, because the reaction is going to start once we get the wet ingredients in there.
Don't we have to do this close to the oven?
No, it doesn't have to be. We just want to
Very much.
be fast with our scooping. Okay,
Now go ahead and mix it while you pour it.
let's make the bowl nice and stable here so it doesn't fall off. Okay, so the other thing is to fold things in gently, so we don't want to whip vigorously, so we want to get it in there and work quickly. But
did you mix it all the way? There's lots of white.
there is white because it's chili in here, and so that's just the coconut oil. But that's okay. All right, so that's in there, and we're going.
Mix it up so it's nice and gooey like dough, like cake dough.
Yeah.
That smells good.
So gently stir until it's combined.
For a second, I thought the camera could smell it.
Do you want to tell them what it smells like?
Chocolate cupcakes.
And so that's a nice.
A little bit of beet juice.
So that's a nice treat for us at the end of the Sugar Savvy Challenge, isn't it? I've
At
been
the
doing. Oh, go ahead.
At the end of it, it's the best to eat normal sugar again. It actually does taste like chocolate cake because of the cocoa powder.
And obviously these are for our family, so when she dips her finger in there and is eating them, we'll just let that go.
I don't do that when I bake for other people.
It's part of the joy of
Baking.
baking. And I can already tell that this batter is much fluffier than the ones that we made earlier in the week because we forgot our cocoa powder and then everything fell. So this is already turning out better, and I think we will get close to 12.
Yeah, exactly 12. Maybe we might even get 13, but we don't have enough space. Can't eat the rest.
No, you can't eat the rest. And that's the other thing, since there aren't any eggs in
I
here,
can eat it.
you can eat the batter with,
You can just put it in a bowl and eat it like pudding.
yeah.
Because the raw eggs in normal baking, most of the baking is the reason why you can't eat the raw dough mixture.
All right, so I'm putting those in the oven for 20 minutes, and I'm not going to keep you here for 20 minutes waiting for my cupcakes to bake, but I will show you the frosting.
That one.
Okay, watch out.
Is there any kind of sweetener?
Don't scoop it out. She's excited for a treat.
Isn't there any kind of sweetener that you can put in the frosting to make it sweeter? Because it doesn't exactly taste like normal frosting, and it's not really so sweet.
Yeah,
My taste buds are different, but other people, their taste buds might not be so.
Yeah, so I choose not to sweeten my frosting, but you can if you want to. And what this is and you have a couple of choices. I like to use the coconut cream, and I also get this from Trader Joe's. All right, can you come stand over here? And so this you don't have to chill quite as long. It's thicker, and so you can just use one can, and you can chill it for maybe half an hour or so, and it's ready to go. If you get the full fat coconut milk, then you need to put this in the refrigerator overnight, and then very carefully spoon out the fat, and you'll need about 2 cans for your cupcakes. So that works as well. It just depends on what you have, but it does need to be the full fat variety. So today I've got the coconut cream, and you could add a little liquid sweetener to this, so like maybe some maple syrup.
Honey, or you can just mix water with sugar and then put it in.
Well, or you could not use sugar. That's the whole point, is to not have the sugar,
Does it have to be liquid sweetener?
the white sugar. Because in a traditional frosting, you would use the powdered sugar, right? Or in a whipped cream, if you're making whipped cream, you could put the powdered sugar in. But we're avoiding those things today. And this I actually did have in the refrigerator a little longer,
That's a
so
little fluffier.
it's a little firmer. But this, it doesn't even, it has a tiny bit of liquid at the bottom, not a whole lot. So this actually has the consistency of cream cheese.
Can I look at this lid?
I guess so. We're keeping it real here today. This is what really happens in my kitchen when I'm baking, unless of course we're cooking for guests, right, Sophie?
Mm-hmm. Well, I still get a fresh spoon and scoop it out and eat it.
Yeah.
I just don't dip my fingers in.
To clean out the bowls. So I'm just kind of mashing this with the spoon a little bit to soften it up. And then
It's hard to get this off.
I'm not even going to measure because my teaspoon is dirty. I put about a teaspoon of vanilla in here. And vanilla is another sneaky ingredient. I get the pure vanilla extract, and I had no idea that a lot of the varieties actually have sugar and other things in them. I didn't know until we started doing the sugar savvy thing, and somebody asked me about vanilla. I said, well, doesn't vanilla have sugar in it? I said, no, it doesn't have sugar in it. And then it turns out that some varieties do.
Does that one have sugar?
This one does not.
Good.
So that's why I was surprised because mine doesn't. So as you can see, this is pretty thick. So you want it thick so it's going to act like frosting. And that's actually easier than getting out the mixer and
mixing egg whites and mixing powdered sugar. That takes a little longer. It's a little more stressful.
Yeah, so this is actually an easier
and
healthier way to do frosting. So I have a little frosting spatula.
You have two?
Do you want to frost them too?
Yes.
I think I do have two. But you can use a regular butter knife as well.
Can I have a cupcake?
Yeah, there you go. And so you can put the frosting on top, and you could pipe these. You could put them, if you have the cake decorating stuff, you could pipe them, or you could put the frosting in a plastic bag and cut off a corner and make it really pretty.
Perfect though. It just matters the taste kind of, unless you're doing it on a contest that looks the best.
Yeah, unless you're doing a contest. But I don't mind just swirling it around the top. And then today we have some dried coconut that we're putting on top. Dried shredded coconut, unsweetened. But you could also put on some chopped nuts, or if you wanted to use a few traditional sprinkles, you could do that as well.
Can I do that in my cookie?
If you want to, but we'll wait till we're done with the video.
Can you?
Oh, you want some coconut on this one?
Extra. Handful.
Okay, hold over the plate here so you're not getting it in the rest of the frosting. All right, so now we have snow showers of coconut.
Two.
But so this is what it looks like. Try not to spill a coconut on my computer, but oh, and Sophia's already had about half of hers. So these were the scrawny ones that, we didn't get enough fluff into. But do they still taste good, Sophia? Your mouth is full, so you can't talk. So.
Let's put in a little more sweetener into the frosting next time. It is kind of not so sweet. The powder is, but it's still yummy.
Yeah, so she would like to have the frosting be a little bit sweeter. I prefer it unsweetened. So you'll have to see what your family's taste is. You can give it a little taste before you put it on and see if you think it needs to be sweetened just a little bit. But if you look inside, you can see the little bits of kale in there. So if you have somebody that's going to be upset about seeing that, you could chop it even more finely. And they're tinged just a little bit red from the beets.
Yeah, because the cocoa powder overtook the color.
Yeah. So I think they're really pretty. They're really nice for Valentine's Day. So if you need to make something for Valentine's Day, this is a nice option.
For Valentine's Day, I have two options. To add less cocoa powder, then it looks more red. And then second, you can use a little heart cookie cutter and cut it, and then it'll be a heart.
A heart cupcake? Should we try that here in a little
Now,
bit?
yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
And you can add some pink and purple and red sprinkles on.
So we have all kinds of ideas.
Where is it?
Well, we'll dig those out in a minute. But we have all kinds of ideas. But that's something that's fun to work with your kids in the kitchen. Is you can go along with the ideas that they have and maybe come up with a brand new recipe. Who knows? So I really hope that you'll get into the kitchen. You'll try these out, and you're going to do a star instead. And work with your kids and explain to them why things are healthier and how they can make good choices. Yeah.
Mud pie.
And now we have a mud pie. But that's the joy of experimenting. So that's the last of our sugar savvy challenges. The challenge ends tomorrow. For us, it'll be 28 days. And
don't throw these ends away when you cut it. Yeah.
So I hope that you'll experiment with sweetening things in different ways and looking for ways to decrease the amount of sugar in your diet. So please let me know if you have any questions. You can write to me, Kimberly, at in-dependent.org, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about this recipe or any of the other recipes that we did in the challenge.
It really worked out.
Mud pie. It'll still taste good. All right. Bye.